Welcome to another episode of Decoy. And today I have Josh here with me.
Yo, what's
We
up?
are talking about the Umbrella Academy that just released on the 15th of February on Netflix. We're like 2 weeks into this, but this is going to be there's going to be a lot of spoilers because we wanted to talk about the whole thing and not want to
Exactly. So this will be a spoiler-heavy podcast. We'll be going well in depth into the characters, the plot, the future of this franchise, and what's going to happen in the
yep.
second season. So if you're if you haven't seen it, I suggest you
Yeah,
that you
don't listen to this right now. Go watch it and then get back. It's been 2 weeks though. You should have watched it by now. It's a pretty good show.
yeah,
So
if you want a verdict on it, we suggest you highly watch it. It's a really different take on the superhero genre with say a little huge elements of X-Men, uh, time traveling and all that kind of jazz. So do check it out and come back to the podcast after you've listened to it. We'll be going well in depth and we'll be discussing what the future holds for this franchise.
yeah.
So
So
not
that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. No, no.
no.
If you are still here and you've already watched it, then yeah, let's just dive into this damn thing. So, Umbrella Academy. I was just telling Josh about this. I read the comics. At
Yeah,
least
so
the
you've read the comics.
yes, the first two, like at least the comics that sort of made sense in the series, in the Netflix series.
Right.
But I have not read Hotel Oblivion, which is the more recent
Okay,
one.
okay. Let's just give a little background of Umbrella Academy and
Yeah, yeah. So
who made it and what is basically Umbrella Academy based on.
it's not based on anything. So the Umbrella
No,
Academy
I'm talking about the
actually.
TV show. The TV show is
Oh
based on
yeah,
it.
the Netflix show is actually based on this series of comics from actually 2008, if believe it or not. The first
Okay.
Umbrella Academy comics came out. The Apocalypse Suite is what it's called. It's like a six-part comic series, and it came out in 2007 and 8
Okay.
was when that ran. And then the second follow-up
How
to
many
that
issues were the Apocalypse Suite?
six issues, so
Okay.
it's a limited series,
Okay.
and also there's a second run of another 6 issues, which was Dallas,
Okay.
Umbrella Academy Dallas, which again, so this whole thing, the first two Umbrella Academy series, the 6-part series, the limited ones, actually ended somewhere around 2008 2009,
Okay.
and then in 2013 is when Hotel Oblivion actually came around. So there was a huge gap in between, and I was just thinking about this. And so before we give you more let me give you more context to this, because the Umbrella Academy, like I said, these are the two comic books that
Okay.
came out: Apocalypse Suite and then Dallas.
Okay.
Um,
And the current season one is based on both those comics, or
yes,
just the Apocalypse Suite.
yes, and no. So I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The the creators of the comics are Gerard and Gabriel. So Gerard wrote uh, the story. Gerard is the artist, the man behind all the cool graphics and all of that. The artwork is pretty interesting. It's not very. I don't know. I don't know. I've never read a comic book before, so I don't know what to say about it. Have you seen
Mm,
the comic?
no, I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay, so it's very I don't know.
It's very um, edgy. Can
Yeah,
you say that?
yeah, I guess you could say that, but well, it's not like any
Yeah, it isn't
conventional.
like Alex Ross
Yeah,
or
it's not
Brian
like
Michael
a.
Bendis or
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
you wouldn't have like these very traditional type of panels and um how the characters are placed in that. So, but it's very funky. It's very out there, and I think both Gerard Way and Gabriel Ba, what they try to do with it is just it's a very big idea, okay, and when you see the artwork and you read the story, that's very evident that they weren't trying to do like a small, it is a limited edition, like a limited run,
Yeah.
but they weren't trying to do like a small story. It wasn't like an indie comic.
Yeah. You could
They
tell even in the season, even in the TV series,
right.
it goes big. They're not pulling. They're
It
not pulling back any punches.
Yeah, like the animation
Yeah.
on the chimp and then
I know
the
it's
moon.
exactly
It's like
Hollywood level.
yeah, it's like movie quality
Yeah.
animation in the movie, and they tried to do that, and I think Netflix did justice to the comic books, because the comic books also tries to sort of not in the sense of it was high budget,
Yeah, it
like the
really
Netflix
was.
series, but then there was ambition in the storytelling,
Yeah,
building that world and that universe and putting all these characters in there. So yeah, those comics were actually really interesting. They also actually had sort of like these um, promos or like a prelude comics that came out. These were like just 4 page, 5 page
right,
releases.
right.
There were about four of them. This for Apocalypse Suite and Dallas. They sort of teased. It just set the. They were just trying to set the tone for this comic, because then I guess they had to do that because uh, Umbrella Academy does have a very unique tone in
I
terms
know,
of
and
how the story is told. It's
yeah,
not a very oh, here are heroes. This is the plot, and here's how they go about it type of thing. It's
exactly. From the get go, you know that this is not any like run of the mill standard superhero
right,
comic or
right.
TV show. I mean, and that's actually another good thing about the entire Umbrella Academy is like I think wow, one or two superheroes, like the rest of their powers are different. It's really different and it's
Yeah,
really
yeah, it's
out
not
there.
like conventional superhero
Yeah,
powers. Like there aren't any people who are shooting flames or like
I know. You know, but number one has super strength. Everybody has super strength. Yeah, but I think
yeah,
apart from him, like not everybody else has like
yeah, and also
conventional
like number
superheroes.
two just is just a knife thrower. So I don't know, like if he has a superpower, he just has great aim. He's kind of like I don't know, kill
No, he
shot
can
or
he can bend things to
death
his
shot.
will. I think that's what I got from it.
Oh no, no, he can. But I've just only seen him do it with the knives. Can he actually? I'm trying to remember what
No,
happens in the
exactly.
comics. Does he?
He can control.
In
I
the
think
in the comic in the
he's
comics he
known as the
can.
Kraken because he can hold his breath underwater for long,
Right.
for really long.
Right.
So
But also, like, so now I'm just thinking back. Okay, so we will talk about these characters also in detail. So,
yeah, first
we
let's get to the
yeah, we
plot.
just wanted to set up, what this is about. So what happens is basically, just one fine day, randomly, 43 women give birth to children all over the globe,
Yeah.
and they weren't.
They weren't pregnant or they
Yeah,
haven't been
yeah,
conceived
they haven't conceived or were pregnant when they
prior.
started out, like just in like an
The day
hour or so.
before, the day before they weren't pregnant. They didn't show
Yeah,
any signs of pregnancy.
they just conceived and then gave birth to these children.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we are asked to assume that these children have superpowers, but I guess that so okay, so Sir Reginald Hargreaves is like this really eccentric billionaire who travels and does a lot of things, but he's just interested in these children. He wants to go collect as many of them as possible.
Yeah.
He pays off a bunch of people, buys these kids from them. He manages to get only seven
Yeah.
of the 43. We also know that some of these kids don't survive. 43 children were born, but not all of them survived.
Yeah. Some of them
And
were either killed or abandoned or
like, no, I mean, we don't
put up for adoption. So
born, they probably died at birth, but we never find out, at least up
up
to
to this
this
point,
point,
yeah.
what's happened with any of them. But yeah, so he picks up seven kids, and yeah, just takes them home, and all he has in mind is that he wants to set up, or groom a sort of a superhero team that would be ready for when the world ends, for them to save the world.
Yeah.
Um,
It's implied that he knows something that an apocalypse is coming. So in order to thwart that, he assembles these kids. He
right,
gets these
right.
kids and he trains them. He
I
makes
mean,
them into
yeah. So
lizards.
if you watch the show, at the end of it, there you just sort of that just kind of
Pulls everything back together. Comes full circle.
yeah, like you just think there's something off about why this guy got all these guys together,
Yeah.
even the circumstances of his death.
There's something
Um,
off about him as well.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're just
There's a
jumping
little
around here a bit,
flashback.
but that's
There's a
that's
little
kind
bit
of the.
flashback scene where I don't think that's Earth.
What do you mean, like flashback?
Yeah,
Where?
the last episode, the white violin. There's a flashback with him and his wife, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it is Earth. He just
I don't think that's Earth. There were like many like spaceships, like just.
Oh, okay.
going up.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Anyway, we'll get back to that. So
But then he comes and he finds this umbrella place and then
yeah,
he just
I don't know. We'll
cool.
get back to
No,
that.
but also yeah, we'll get to that. I wanted to talk about the world building that they did in the Netflix series, which
Yeah,
wasn't that great. I mean,
I mean, you
there were
can
these
only do so
characters. The
much.
mansion was there. They could only do so much. It didn't, bother me.
Yeah,
But when you talk about where this guy came from and where they are actually, then it brings up a bunch of questions. And I'll tell you this: the Umbrella Academy raises a whole bunch of questions. But you would not be mad about it. It's just intriguing. So the story
I know it
is really
satisfies
entertaining.
the questions that the utmost the criteria, the questions of highest criteria, like the questions you need to know get
Right. No,
answered.
but I
They
also
satisfy.
saw. I was watching this interview with Gerard and then he was talking about how the comics don't actually just again a testament to how this is not a conventional comic book or a comic based story. He wasn't just the story is just not laid out in front of you. They don't just give
Yeah,
you
exactly.
like the origins of these. Like for example, Ben is dead. We
They
know
don't tell.
that.
They don't mention
Exactly,
how.
and they don't even in the comics. I haven't figured out how he died
Yeah,
yet.
I don't think I don't think it's
So
mentioned.
yeah, he was saying this is sort of a universe that sort of unravels itself as you sort of go down the rabbit
Exactly.
hole. This is not a story where they just lay it all in front of you and then you just you just go, oh, okay. But yeah, so that's very that's an interesting way of telling the story. And then obviously Gerard Way we know from My Chemical Romance. So he was actually still in My Chemical Romance when he wrote
When he
this
wrote
because the
this.
band
Yeah.
broke up somewhere around 2013, I guess.
Yeah. So this was
Yeah,
his
so
little
the
brainchild.
first two um, comics were released well when he was still in the band in 2008 and 9. And he also wrote Killjoys, which is another comic,
Yeah.
which, if you know, is one of their albums, The Fabulous Lives
The
of
the Killjoys.
uh,
Fabulous Lives of
no, the Dangerous Lives of the Fabulous Killers.
Killjoys.
That's what it was.
Exactly.
So that was an old album based out of that also. So yeah, so he so if you are familiar with his work, like as a musician,
You know his work is anything but conventional. Okay.
yeah, you do, and then you know how like he has all of these dark intonations in the story, and they really sort of bring out the Umbrella Academy, characters really well in the Umbrella Academy. So I thought that was cool. But let's just talk about these characters. So I just figured, if we talk about Gerard Way's music influences, and then we're talking about the Netflix series, and then the comic books. It's just a lot of things to talk about at once, and then I'm sure we'd be excited and just jump around a lot. So I just want to talk about these characters. So from the Netflix series standpoint, and this is true for the comic books as well. One thing that's set in stone is that we have the same characters. There aren't like too many differences in their uh,
Powers and
their
abilities.
powers, their abilities, have their relationships,
Yeah.
and who they are. But I should say that Sir Reginald Hargreaves, Reg, he when he collects these kids, he was not adopting them in any way. He was not like he wasn't looking to be their father. He wasn't
Yeah.
to your X-Men reference
Charles Xavier.
earlier.
He
Yeah,
wasn't
he
yeah,
wasn't
Charles
the Charles
Xavier.
Xavier. He
He was
wasn't.
the caring father.
He
He was
had from the get-go, it just seemed like he had one goal, and he was just grooming these kids towards that. He was just treating them like a military weapon, not really anything else. Like they were given everything that they needed. All of their basics were covered, but you know
yeah.
he's just basically a caretaker who was driving these guys. He's also an extremely intelligent man. We don't know too much about him at this
He's
point.
really intelligent. I think he won a Nobel Prize or something.
Yeah. So in the comics, he has won a Nobel Prize for his works in cognitive development
In chimpanzees,
in chimps. Yeah, and
leading
then
to
that's
his famous, leading to his butler, which is a chimp.
Pogo. Yeah. So we have Dr. Reginald Hargreaves, who we talked about. He's this eccentric billionaire character, and he's the same in the comics and in the series. And we'll try to go parallel with the Netflix series and the comic book, so that it's easier for us
We
to
yeah we'll try to
read between the lines and look at the
yeah
contrast
we'll
of the
try to like
characters.
find out the differences and similarities, and most
Right,
importantly.
right. Yeah, I think that will help instead of going about it twice separately, you know. But so as a result of him being this very reclusive person, until these kids were 10 years old, he didn't bother to name them. So all of these characters are basically numbers, right? So
I
we
don't think
have
he ever named them. I think the maid,
oh, his
uh,
mom, his mother named them.
Grace, yeah, the Grace, the
Okay.
maid named them.
Oh, okay,
They
cool.
were more
Yeah.
attached to Grace,
To
who
the
was their
yeah, he was
nanny.
an android, but then
Yeah,
they call her mom.
yeah,
So yeah, the kids were a lot more attached to her than with him. So there's numbers 1 through 7.
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are the characters. Um,
He basically named them according to the importance.
their
Basically,
powers,
yeah,
their skill set, and you
yeah.
know how what
One,
basically what he wanted them to be.
yeah,
Even not because these were like infants when he picked them.
yeah.
Okay, we probably didn't number them immediately, but then, yeah, he
No,
like
this
for
was,
example, so the number one, Luther, Space Boy, aka Space Boy, he picked him up to be a leader,
yeah,
right? And then he wanted him to be a leader,
leader.
and that's kind of what Luther grows up to
He,
be. But he tries really hard.
or he thinks he's a leader because, yeah, you
Because
can
his
find,
dad said, and he's
yeah,
one of the most loyal characters to Sir
to
Hargreaves,
Hargreaves.
um, who because none of the other characters like him at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, so what are his superpowers?
His superpowers were I think he has super strength. He had
Right.
super strength, but where he could and severe like immunity to any kind of bulletproof. He is bulletproof, super strong.
Okay.
And there is an incident which is shown in the flashbacks where he basically goes on a mission
Right.
regarding some biochemical weapons or something,
Right.
and he comes back severely injured. His half his body is like burnt, turned to
Oh
ash.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where his father had no choice but to give him a serum, I think,
That he
which,
used on Pogo, I guess.
yeah, exactly. It's not applied. Exactly like what you said. Nothing is laid out in front of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything is like just
He just says,
something.
"Give me the serum,
Yeah,
Pogo," and then Pogo just happens to have a syringe with the freaking serum in it.
yeah. And
It's
he's
almost like they knew this was gonna happen.
and he wakes up immediately having
Not
a
well after a while because
yeah
he
after.
grows a beard out. He's like
No, I don't
in a
think that's
coma.
because of that. I think it's because he's got
Oh,
senior
because of
DNA.
the
Yeah, so his hair,
oh, okay,
so he's got like increased hair,
okay,
like around his. He has a body of a gorilla now,
right.
basically.
So he's just this. If you go look at the comic books again, he's again this huge uh, gorilla person with just a tiny head, but there's like all these tubes and stuff coming out of him.
No,
But he has a jetpack.
in
In
the
the comics,
comics
he
he
can
goes to
fly.
Mars, and he has a severe accident, same thing, but his body gets completely bashed up.
Right.
So what his father does, he takes his head and puts it on a body of a Martian gorilla
Oh, right.
and
Okay.
connects him with tubes.
Okay. Okay. So that's they changed that in
Yeah,
the series
that's
then.
one of the changes. That was one of the major changes.
Okay.
In that.
The one the I think the Netflix explanation I buy that more than
Yeah,
Martian
it's much more
gorilla.
realistic.
Because he does
Yeah,
have a Nobel Prize in
yeah,
chimpanzees. So I believe that he probably had a serum
yeah,
somewhere that turned this
yeah,
guy into a
exactly.
chimpanzee. But this guy actually yeah. So I was worried about how they were gonna translate that big huge character from the
Exactly,
comic
that's
books.
how they changed
So
it.
he was like 8, 9 feet in the comic books. If you look at him, he's like
Yeah.
huge, right? And then I think they did a good work, all things considered, for a Netflix series,
Exactly.
like a TV series for the budget that they had. They did good work. I kind of felt the hair growing from his arms could have been slightly more furry.
I
It's
mean,
just like an
yeah,
old man's beard hanging off his elbows. It felt a little like he had just gone through chemotherapy or
yeah,
something,
something like
and
that.
I just wanted to be slightly more
Exactly.
a thicket of hair, just in his biceps. That would have been a lot cooler. But yeah, I
But
mean,
considering all things considered, I think they did a very good job in like making it
bringing the
at
character
least
alive.
no, looking at least
I
possible.
mean, yeah, when you see him, you're like, obviously it's that guy.
Yeah,
They brought that out. I mean, they did make it slightly realistic, because obviously you couldn't make him blue, like all blue, like the
yeah,
gorilla suit in the comics.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. So they had to like skimp out in some places,
yeah, he didn't
but
have white hair though. If he had white hair,
yeah, exactly. He
That
had
would have
white
been
hair. Yeah,
cooler.
I don't think it would have.
Do you think? Depends on the actor, I guess. I don't know.
I don't think it would have.
Well, they made some
I think
creative
I think we're
choices.
nitpicking regarding that white hair because I don't
No,
know
it's
about.
fine. It's fucking fine. The comic book, the character has white hair.
Yeah,
If you can't do a
exactly.
blue gorilla, at least do like white hair and a
Yeah,
gorilla's body, I think.
exactly.
So
So
yeah, yeah. So from the series, I'm happy with the character. In the comic books, do I enjoy the character? It was okay. It was more like he was just necessary. He was like a boy scout. He was just, telling everybody what he's just being a leader. He's just being this really goody goody guy. So
yeah,
it's fine.
but in the TV show, I like the way they handled him because here he's like a fair leader basically. His own father didn't even like trust him to do anything, so he just sent him to the moon just so he could under the pretext of collecting samples to
Right.
send it to him.
Right.
Where in reality, he had actually no use for him. He was
Right.
like nothing. The team disbanded,
Right.
and his his like, whole idea was like he was supposed to be the leader,
Hmm.
and now that the team is disbanded, he had nothing to lead. So
Right.
he had no purpose, and
He
his
was just
father,
like a ghost in the house. He was
yeah,
just like there. I mean, he was in the moon actually.
yeah. So his father was like, "Fine, you're worthless here. At least let me send you to the moon, just to like give you some fake
Yeah,
excuse to
we
like."
and we don't see that conversation. We don't know why he sent him, what he said that he had to do in the
No,
moon, what samples he was
he said
collecting.
Dad just like wanted to give me, yeah, send me samples so that to assess
Yeah,
any
but like,
threats. That's what
oh, okay.
that's what.
So in the comic books, I think he just sent him to the moon to go and look out for the global annihilation.
Yeah, something like that. Out Global
So he's
Annihilation
just basically
Outpost.
like an outpost there. Yeah, he was just like looking out for anything from outer space that's
Yeah.
going to come and attack them. But yeah, and then he comes to Earth. Also, interestingly, in the comic books, he has a robot companion on the moon.
Named Ben.
Yeah, whose name's Ben. Now the comic doesn't explore the relationship between Luther and Ben.
Yeah,
Maybe
Ben is number 6, right?
yeah,
The dead brother.
yeah, and we don't know if Luther feels bad about Ben dying. Did he feel that
No,
it was because of him? Like he was one, and he did something to stop
yeah,
it.
everybody blames him for his death, which I don't know why.
Oh yeah, so we have no idea why that is, but he had a robo called Ben. I guess he was just trying to make up for Ben's
Yeah.
loss. But then yeah, so these guys come down to Earth when Luther comes down to Earth when his father died. Ben doesn't. Ben still just stays on the moon. At least in the comic book, Ben does not exist as a robot in the
Yeah,
series.
they completely scrapped the idea of Ben, the robot.
The robot, but no, the robot didn't have too many things to do in the comics either. He was just standing there. He probably had like one
I
line or
think
something, so.
I think they
They
did a
just
good
like
job.
yeah. But I think what they did with Ben in the series was a lot more fun.
Yeah, I think they did a very good job
Right.
with Ben.
Again, Ben had like very little dialogue, but I liked him better showing up as a human being through claws.
Yeah, I liked his
And
chemistry with Cos. We'll get back to 6
right.
and 5.
So the number two is Diego,
Yeah.
aka the Kraken.
Yeah.
Like he said, because he could hold his breath on the water a lot. And in the comic books, he had an eye patch. He only has one eye.
Yeah.
Over here, he's just like I don't know, he's like a military.
No, I think he's a former cop. He underwent police academy training.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
why he knows everybody.
He did no, but I'm just
Safe.
talking about his garb. Like his
Yeah.
outfit is sort of like
I think his garb is like kind of
Punisher
like
type of thing.
yeah, exactly,
but
the
without
most
guns, he
stereotypical.
likes knives instead of guns, which I don't know. It was just giving me like circus vibes. Like
Yeah,
he could have had,
out
like,
of all the characters, his
you
was
could have
the
had an
most
origin story like
stereotypical, yeah.
Robin. He's just
Exactly.
working in the circus as a knife thrower, and then. But no, he didn't. But yeah, I don't know. But he could bend those knives.
He could bend them in any direction, even without seeing his target.
Right.
He could just bend it.
So we don't know if that's the limit of his power, but that's literally all he does, and he's basically.
Maybe he has a psionic control over the knives which he throws.
We don't know. Yeah, probably.
Maybe that's implied.
I guess I don't know. But yeah, so
no, I think going back to your earlier question, whether if he can throw only his knives.
Right.
Remember when Hazel and Chacha enter the house?
Right.
Allison gives him a pen to throw.
Oh, that curve too?
Yeah, that curve too, and it stabbed her on the leg.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's not just
So he
his
can
knives.
do that with anything.
He can do that with anything. So basically.
Sweet, and also he just always runs off on his own. He's like a loner.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Batman kind of.
He's independent. He's a vigilante, and and then he's the only person when we visit them, when you get to know the characters in the series who's actually actively fighting crime. Everybody else is just sort of
gone off on their own things.
Yeah, they're just
He's
doing
the
their
only
own thing.
person like actually willing to fight crime. Like kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
he's
like
kind of like a Nightwing kind of character, Nightwing Batman kind
yeah,
of character,
exactly, exactly.
brooding, loner,
Yeah,
you know. And he is more attached to his mother Grace than anybody else in the show. She helps him overcome his stuttering.
right.
So
And
because
these are things again they brought up in the series.
yeah,
So, so in the comic books, Diego does not have too many layers.
yeah, they
He's
flesh
just
out his
like
character a lot more here.
yeah. I mean, no, he does a couple of cool, like some badass things in the comics. Like
Yeah,
he was an interesting character. It was
yeah,
good to see that we all got back together and they're a team. But no, these guys are properly a dysfunctional family. They're not always together. The Kraken's always running off on his own. He gets injured a lot. He's always bleeding, doing something or the other. In more than one occasion in the comic, he's just gone off to fight a villain by himself. So he's like this proper vigilante type of a deal.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
and
I
then
and here in the comics he's more of a vigilante. He's just one dimensional character. But here in the series they add so much of layers to him. He's actually an insecure boy with a stutter. He is a mama's boy,
hmm,
and yeah, and here he's always afraid to like lose somebody
right.
because like a lot of people he loves have
Mhm.
been lost, and he had a girlfriend called Eudora Patch who was a detective.
Right, from the police
Yeah,
academy days.
things didn't work out. They had differences and
Right.
they've broken up.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
And then she
she dies.
spoilers, she
She
dies.
dies.
But then that pisses him off,
Yeah,
and then he
and then
goes
he's on
off
a
on his
mission. Again, he's on a mission to avenge her death.
right. But also in the comic books, actually, Diego and Vanya have a sort of a
Yeah,
relationship.
he has feelings for her,
Yeah,
Vanya.
he does. And then they actually so in the comic book is a lot more interesting because Vanya in this is shown as a like this very like she plays the violins, but in that sense of like a string player, like she's probably in like a quartet or something. But in the comic books, Diego and Vanya are actually in a punk band.
Yeah, I know that.
And then yeah, so her father basically Reggie says that you both can't be doing this. They decide to run away from home, and then there's this huge battle with a villain, and all of the other kids from the academy are actually beaten. Luther and
Okay.
Rumor and everyone. So Diego ends up being the only guy who's left. So he goes to save the day,
Yeah.
which he does. Um, but he was supposed to have met Vanya by the time, so they can skip town. So Vanya sort of feels abandoned even by him,
Okay.
and then she leaves off on her own in the comic books, and that's how that takes place. So they've made those creative choices. I guess it's more
I mean,
interesting
yeah, there's room for one
for
relationship between the couple. I don't between the family. I don't think that.
also because in the series Vanya has a relationship with Leonard.
Yeah, which is
Uh,
very important.
so
Going
yeah,
down the
so
line.
they couldn't have Diego also doing
Yeah.
this. Um, So yeah, that brings us to the next character, which is the rumor, which is Allison, number
Yeah.
three. She has a relationship with Luther,
Luther.
and if right from when they were teenagers, they've had the hots for each other. But then Luther goes off to the moon, so
Yeah, and
Allison
she
then
and she
marries and
becomes a famous
has
movie star, and
yeah. In the
she has
series,
a
she does,
daughter.
but in the comic book, she's not a movie star. She's
I
not
don't
famous.
know, like I don't know how they've written on the comics, but I
In the
think
comic
here
books, I mean, she's a cool character. She has a very unique
she has a very
superpower.
unique power, and
But in
but
the
she's the most underwritten character I feel among all the other seven.
comics, you mean?
No, I'm talking about in the
In the
series.
series?
Yeah, because she's
Okay.
she's an estranged mother, yes, because she's used her powers on her kid.
Right.
Her ex-husband didn't like that, filed for divorce and got custody of that kid. But I feel
Yeah,
that she
yeah. No, I
has.
think I know what you mean, but this is what I think about it. Okay,
Okay.
like as a character, they've written enough about her. Like as in, for example, Diego, who does not have layers in the comic books, and
Yeah.
they've given him, just one thing to go with, literally
Okay.
his mother and his girlfriend
Yeah.
dies. And as far as Allison goes, there's a child factor. Like she's a mother, so that gives her room to have a lot of emotions.
Yeah. But they don't play on that enough.
But also in the comic book, she's just this super manipulative character because she has this power that she can get anything done,
Yeah.
anything that she wants, literally.
I,
That
I, I really would like to have seen more of that. She
she
took
just
she
should
pro
have been just a shade of evil in the series.
a shade of evil or whatever. I would just like to see her use her powers more. We only get to see her
And
use
I don't know why
her
they made
powers in
her a
flashback.
movie star. Because they didn't in the comic books. If
No,
they did do that in
I
the
advocate that decision because what would you do if you had that
yeah,
ability in the
yeah,
real world?
you want
You
to
would
be
be a
famous.
millionaire. You want to be
Yeah,
famous.
but my thing is, they okay, like logically that makes sense as a
Yeah,
character with that superpower. This is what she would probably want to do, especially if she's 15. And then what would you want to, be in the future? Like
yeah,
the movie stars, like everybody's answer. So you're right, but they didn't explore that at all in the movies. Like there was no, there was no attention given to the character besides that one scene where she walks down the red carpet and people take
exactly, exactly.
pictures. It wasn't explored at all. It could have been cool, like if she got like a casting call and she had to go
Yeah,
audition while these guys were,
yeah, exactly,
something major was going down. That would have been a fun thing to look at. They didn't explore that at all. They just said, "Oh, this is what she does for a living," and then just moved on from there.
exactly.
So that's kind of why I felt there was like a missed opportunity
And
in
her
terms of.
powers. The moment where she conveniently could become useful,
Hmm,
something happens to her throat, which we'll get into later.
yeah,
They completely find a easy cop out way to like escalate the stakes, but
they stayed true to the comics from by doing that.
yeah,
You
but
just didn't see her use her powers a lot before that happened,
we never actually got to see her use her
right?
powers at all.
So in the comic books,
Conveniently, she is made like supposedly she's made a promise, but come on, when your siblings are under attack, I think you would break a promise to
like for example, at the funeral when they put Reggie's ashes in the garden, and
Yeah.
then Luther and Diego start this huge fight. They get into a fight. She could have just stopped them,
Okay, yeah, but another one where Hazel and Chacha attack the house,
right?
which is a life-threatening,
Right,
problem.
right. I mean, yeah,
I
she
mean,
didn't. It made for an interesting story, I guess. When you retrospect on these things, you
yeah,
like, huh, what the heck were you doing when that happened?
exactly.
But yeah, I mean,
She was as useless as Vanya in in the previous thing.
right.
She had good martial arts skills. She could
Hmm.
fight. She could throw a punch, but that's not her power. Her main power is her her mind bending words.
Right.
So
I mean, yeah, and they
she was a bit
just.
of a disappointment
Hmm.
for me.
Right. But in the comic books again, her and Luther don't really have this arc of a story that we see in the series. Like
Okay.
they have a little camping thing in their place, and then Luther gives her a locket that
I
has.
like those. I like those
No,
little
yeah. So
touches.
that was nice. Added to the characters.
Yeah. It was more if
But
it was more of a Beauty and the Beast vibe with them. You know,
yeah, yeah. I
he
see what.
considers himself a monster. She will never love him. She's moved on. She's got a kid. She's got she's
But
got
she has
baggage.
told her kid about Uncle Luther who's on
Yeah,
the moon, and yeah, so that's fine, that's cool. But like in the stories, that never happened. There wasn't any stories. I mean,
in
comic
the
books. In the
comics. Yeah,
comics,
yeah.
they there wasn't a explanation. She actually even uses a power on Luther for him to love her
Okay,
in the
right,
comic book, and
right.
then she just has there's
Oh,
this
okay.
scene where she's just upset, and she just wants somebody to for a companion, and they're just on this roof, just
Oh,
getting coffee or
nice,
whatever,
nice.
and yeah, she uses a power on Luther also. Um,
I know
so
that.
she's kind of like this heartless character that just sort of
Yeah, they try
gets
to give
whatever she
they try to
wants.
give her a heart, which I
They
didn't
try to
like.
give her heart. They could have just been more gritty with that character, which would have, brought out what Gerard Way had in mind exactly when he wrote it. Because knowing
Yeah,
the guy, you just know what he was thinking about.
exactly.
But he just wanted her to be like this badass, I get whatever I want
Yeah,
type of thing. But they gave her layers and they made her a mother, and I think that softened the character a
and
little
they
bit.
didn't let her use her powers, which was a crime in my
Yeah,
opinion.
they just softened, and then she became like this really softy. She had the soft for Luther. She was emotional about Vanya, and then
Her daughter.
her daughter, and yeah, she's just like this very emotional character in the end of the day. So that's number three. Number four is Claus, the Seance, whose
Okay.
whose powers are very cool. Like I was telling you, you didn't agree to this. Like before the podcast,
Yeah,
he's my favorite character.
initially
You
he
didn't
was
like.
kind of annoying. Initially he
Did
was
he
kind of
grow on
annoying.
you?
Yeah, he did. He did towards the end when he started becoming sober.
Because
When you started to give him a
for
kind
me,
of
he was just this very, you know, he was this really, this brightly dressed, character that's just
yeah.
high, and he's like the soul of the whole thing of that dysfunctional
Yeah,
family,
exactly. They try to make Allison the heart of the family,
Hmm.
but towards the end, I think that it's pretty clear who the real heart is, and that's Klaus.
No, like
He
so he
really,
was like this really he was like the happy factor in the whole thing, like all this.
I wouldn't consider him a
Not
happy
happy,
factor.
okay,
I was like,
he was like
I don't give a fuck. I just need to get high, which
he
is
was just getting high, but also his powers, if you look at it, are like this the other end of the spectrum. Is this really dark
yeah. They
powers. He
kind of
can
balance
summon
it
the
out.
dead.
That they kind of balance it out when
So yeah, the character sort of just went from, he was trying to escape from his demons literally from this end, and
exactly.
just is on the other
Now,
end of the rainbow, just really dressing up
yeah,
and high,
because
just doing all these stuff.
his powers only work when he's sober. So in
Right.
order to stop
The
seeing
thing is,
dead people,
according to the Netflix series, he's never been sober, so he hasn't fully experienced his
his
powers
powers.
yet, which
I
was
think towards the end
interesting.
they kind of show us his real power.
Yes, but I wanted him to like actually like a necromancer thing, like just actually conjure up, bring someone alive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind
I
of
think he did. He did conjure a bin.
he conjured up his spirit. He was still a blue thing, right? He wasn't like in
Uh,
the flesh.
that's
Ben did so my thing was when Diego gets hurt in the when they like the house explodes, and then Ben sort of saves him.
yeah,
He
exactly,
sort of brings him forward.
exactly.
Ben's able to grab onto him and then save him.
He's able to give
Um,
Ben a physical sort of power in the real world.
Almost brought him back to life,
Yeah, kind of. But
right?
nobody else could see him at that point.
Nobody
Towards
saw
the
him at
end,
that point, and yeah, and then everybody else saw him in the end, but as like a spirit type of thing. They saw the tentacles
I
coming
don't
out.
think you can see like when you conjure up somebody. I mean, that's the
No,
rules
no,
of that particular world.
no. I understand. Yes, when you conjure up somebody, he was the only person who was able to see them.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying is they didn't explore his power, as in they intentionally said he's just been high the whole time. He doesn't know what his true powers are
exactly.
either. So it'll be interesting to see the character going forward if he actually becomes far more powerful than he thinks he
I think
actually
he
is.
will. I think he will hold a very important part because towards the end, I think after when he gets kidnapped by Hazel and Chacha, I
Right.
think that's where he really starts growing on me.
He gives in to his demons, and then he talks to all
Yeah,
of these
and
dead
then he
people.
when he goes to Vietnam, when he time travels back to Vietnam,
Right,
and
right.
then meets Dave, I think his name is.
Dave,
It
yeah.
gives a sort of level of heart to him that I really liked. I really
Okay.
enjoyed.
Right.
So from that point onwards, he started becoming my favorite, my second favorite character.
Okay.
And towards the end, he just really cements his place as the heart of the team,
Right.
as the kind of moral compass, basically,
Hmm.
sort of. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
he,
as much as Umbrella Academy allows you to have a moral compass, because
yeah,
this story is like very batshit. It's batshit crazy straight up. Because
and
it's not
he,
like
yeah,
it's everything's not black
and
and
I
white.
think
But yeah,
he is seen as a failure by among his brothers. Nobody trusts him a lot. Like every time they go into a mission, he's the lookout.
yeah, but that's how they think about everybody, like each
No,
other, like
I think
everybody
apart
else.
from Vanya, they think he's the most second most useless guy because he's a slacker. He always
No,
gets
because
high.
he just doesn't use his
He's
powers.
not
Like, so
responsible.
they know that he can use his powers when he can,
I think
and
that is
then
they see him as
he
his powers
doesn't
is
want to. He
he
doesn't
just
want
talks
to.
to dead people. That's it. But towards the end, they really show that
So
he's got a
in the comics actually, so Claus. Oh, so okay. So in the series, he's openly a gay person,
yeah.
like a gay guy. But in the comic books, they don't really they hint at it. They don't really say that he is. Not that it affects the character in any way, but then in the comic book, he's slightly different.
Yeah.
He's not so flamboyant and how he acts and so on.
I think that
And
is
he can levitate in the comic books, which is really cool. I was expecting there to be some sort of reveal where he levitates.
yeah.
Towards the end of the series, he sort of those powers sort of come forward when he stops doing drugs. So I was expecting that to happen.
Maybe in the next season they might
Yeah,
see him
so I
levitate.
mean, it's a really cool dark character with like a really dark superpower, which I think is just amazing. So he's one of my best characters. Even in the comic books, I liked him a lot. And what they did with the character on Netflix is slightly different, but I like that version also. So they sort of both work for me.
Right.
Yeah, and when so the relationship between Ben and the Seance clause, right? I don't since we never see Ben, we never sort of understand if these guys had a relationship because Claus kind of kept him alive as an apparition
Yeah,
in the series. But I don't think that's because of as brothers they were tight or anything like that.
yeah.
It's just because he's the only guy who could do it.
Okay.
He's the only guy, so Ben can actually be in the
No,
story and
we
still be
don't
dead.
know anything about Ben, so it could be in
No,
anything.
but then we do know we were talking about Luther and Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's in the
that
comics, but
that seemed like some sort of a relationship. Like he cared about him as a brother or whatever.
yeah.
Claus didn't seem like he cared about him too much, but
I don't think Luther cares about anybody apart from Allison in the series.
yeah, okay. I mean, they all care about each other, but like
Yeah,
in different levels.
I
Uh,
I think Luther's more,
Everybody else is like close to nothing,
yeah,
but
close to nothing except for Allison.
Hmm.
So coming to my favorite character of the show, number 5.
Okay.
My God, man, this
He never got named because this douchebag time jumped before his mother could name them. So he's like 60 years old
he is
and he's number
the
five,
funniest.
trapped in a 10-year-old child's body. So
And he
that's
is so funny. I just love the actor who plays him. He's like really good. He you could actually see that he is a 80-year-old, I think a 50-year-old man in trapped inside a 10-year-old's body.
yeah, they time jumped a bunch, so I don't know how old
And
he is now.
he's the most important character because he jumps back into the present. He goes, like you said, he disobeys his father when he asks like him to whether he can time jump,
Right,
and the monocle says no, you can't time jump, and
right.
he like runs away and he just starts jumping all over the place, and then he jumps 50, like 23 years ahead into the future into the
Right.
apocalypse.
So he can do spatial jumps, which is really cool. It's kind of
He can jump
like
from one
that
point to
movie
another.
Jumper.
Yeah,
Like he just jumps
yeah,
in space.
like
Uh,
Nightcrawler.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then but he jumps into time and then gets stuck in the future.
Exactly.
But at this point he was actually 10 years old.
Yeah,
So he it took him like till he was like 50, 60 years old to sort of figure out the equation on how he can
yeah.
get back.
He roams around the apocalypse. He tries to find people.
He finds
And
Dolores, who's of a half man.
okay. I just love the scenes between him and Dolores. They're so funny.
So it's like this guy basically comes back to save the world.
Yeah,
In that future, in the apocalyptic future, he actually becomes one of the deadliest assassins
yeah.
to
Where he comes across the lady. I think her name is,
the handler,
yeah, the handler,
right?
and she introduces him to the commission, which
Right,
is
and
basically,
so he becomes like the most powerful agent for the
yeah,
commission.
which is kind of like a time police where they go
He,
around time
yeah,
to kill
they
people.
they basically just keep the timelines in check. Like
Yeah,
anything that's sort of stepping out or might alter the timeline, they correct it. They call it corrections.
yeah,
They do corrections to sort of keep everything in order,
yeah.
which doesn't seem like a bad thing. They're not like evil. They're just trying to sort of
Sort of
keep.
thing. But he murders people,
Yeah,
and
but then again, for like
yeah,
a good
for the
reason,
good
like
reason.
there's like it's an okay, not good or bad. It's a necessary
It's a
evil
necessary
type of
evil.
thing. Yeah.
And
So
right before he's about to assassinate JFK, he figures out the equation and he jumps back into the present to where the guys all
so
are.
what happens is so he's at the assassination. So I'll tell you about what's from the comic. Okay, let's get to the story a bit later. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about this guy's
Yeah, the
character.
characters.
So because I can explain the story to you, and then we'll just be on
Yeah.
that for another hour. So it's the yeah. So he does spatial jumps. His powers. He has super strength. Also, he's really strong.
I don't think so.
I mean, he can really punch for a 10-year-old. So
I don't think he can punch. He's never punched. And I like that bar scene. It was,
dude, he takes out that whole squad in the donut shop.
yeah, but that's just because he just jumps around, stabs people, jumps around, turns
Yeah, but he
every
has to be strong to do that. He can't
Yeah,
just
he's a 50-year-old man in a
These
kid's
guys
body.
are shooting at him with a machine gun. He like freaking takes them out Jason Bourne style.
Yeah.
So,
I
mean,
love that donut shop.
right.
Shop in the fight in the donut shop. That was really good.
Griddies? Is that what it's called? Griddies?
Griddies, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, number 5 is my favorite character. I love his quirky sarcasm, and
Yeah,
you can see that.
we could see that he's an old guy in a kid's body.
Yeah, you can see that he is more. He acts like he wants to save the apocalypse, but you can really see that he's more interest in protecting his family, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, that was like he saw that a little bit through the veil,
Yeah,
but it wasn't too obvious.
yeah,
He was dismissive of them. He's like, you're just all stupid. You
yeah.
don't understand." But then he was actually what affected him is that he saw all of them
He
dead
died,
in the
which
same
yeah,
place, and then that sort of drives him to sort of keep pushing forward because he just
yeah,
knows his family is this
yeah.
fine. These guys are idiots, and this is just what they do.
So
So
he
he's
takes it
just trying
upon
to
himself to save
yeah
his family,
yeah.
which is very nice. I like
But
that.
also I like that his brain's slightly broken because yes, Dolores he
Yeah,
finds her in the
yeah. When
present
he
time
says,
again.
yeah,
And they've been together for 30 years.
yeah,
So he's this really powerful character. He's also a child. He is also a really old man
but
who's
he's
trying to
also,
save the world,
but
but
he's
he's
also,
also slightly
and
mad.
I think the actor, I don't know whose name is. I have to go and check, but he did a really good job, and
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
it.
so.
I like number five a lot. My favorite character.
Right. And I like that he's called number five. Doesn't
Yeah,
have a name. So,
yeah. It's
so
cool. It's badass, like 007.
yeah. So the next one is like we talked about Ben a lot at this point. His name is number six.
Yeah,
Number six. His name is
yeah,
Horror. I feel like they should have called him Kraken because he has his tentacles coming out.
yeah.
I
Exactly.
don't want
That
to
I
call him
yeah.
Kraken.
I think that's
So
a mix up or something.
I'm sure it wasn't a mix up. I'm sure they had something in mind, but I don't know. But, but that's kind of what you expect out of Umbrella Academy. Like I said, everything's not what you would normally associate it to be, or what you think it would be. So the horror is we don't know much. He's dead. We don't know how or what happened or when he died.
Yeah,
Um, who killed him? We know nothing about it. But all we know is his power is that there's this big beast that comes out of his stomach and just creates havoc. So
yeah,
that's what he is. And it was nice to, even though the character didn't have any dialogue at all, like almost nothing, it was
right.
like a good thing for Klaus to sort of have his inner monologue in the
Yeah,
series.
he was the voice of reason for Klaus.
Yeah,
He was his
yeah,
conscience.
he was nice. It
He
was
was a
nice to
moral
have that
compass to the
dynamic
moral
between
compass. Yeah,
Claus and him. It was fun. It was just a fun touch to the
yeah,
movie, to the series, to watch him and for him to be there. And also, it sort of gave you a fulfillment factor. Like the team is together, but
yeah,
even though he's dead, they're still sort of together. So
yeah.
that was nice. The last is Vanya
And
Hargreaves.
arguably the most important character.
Yeah, the most important character, at least as far as the Apocalypse Suite goes. Number seven. So Hargreaves says that she does not have any powers and just basically suppresses her from her childhood. After some initial
Yeah, and with
experiments that
her
he does with her,
and because she doesn't have any power, she feels like she's an outsider from everybody else.
and everybody else, they're like a family of superhumans, and they sort of alienate her because they think that father's keeping her away for a reason.
Yeah.
She stays away from them because this guy's keeping her fit. So
So
basically, Hargreaves, sort of divides them and keeps them. He could have just sent her back. He couldn't send her back also because he actually knew that she was an
he knew that she would,
untapped
yeah,
potential.
he knew that she would be a major role in actually saving the world from the apocalypse.
No. So she initially when he brings these kids in, he just figures out that she has this unlimited power, like, as he writes in his journal.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
That
And she
letter
would be
he
key to
gets.
saving the apocalypse, but he didn't realize that, spoilers, that she would bring about the apocalypse.
He didn't realize that, but no, my thing is he didn't. He had to keep her in the family and also secluded from
Yeah,
everybody else. Which fucked up her head a little
which
bit.
fucked up. He put her on antidepressants.
Yeah, so
So
she's just
basically,
been
spoiler alert, she pretends, Hargreaves just puts her down, keeps telling her she's not special, she's
right.
useless, she's worthless,
Hmm.
and she has no talent except playing the violin very
Right,
well.
right.
And even then, also he
But
says,
also, I think in that way, he gave her weapon to sort of
he gave her the anger, yeah,
to channel her
yeah.
powers through the violin.
And
So
as a result of the main guy, Hargreaves pushing her away,
right,
the other kids push her away as well because they don't allow her to come on
we don't
missions.
understand the kids, and yeah,
They don't allow her to come on missions. And obviously, they were just kids. You would think that, but even as they grow older, they've all got their own lives. While
right,
she still likes them, they have no time for her, and they are not interested in her,
right,
which really moves her away from them and into the arms of Mr. Peabody, which we'll get into later.
right.
But yeah, reality is, she realizes in the end it's made clear that she's not like a
And
normal
also,
person.
she writes a book.
Yeah, exactly. That is,
everybody
yeah, I
hates her
forgot.
for.
I forgot. That's the major catalyst where everybody hates her.
Yeah, and then everybody just starts hating because she just outed them and told everybody her family
Yeah,
secret.
there's a scene where Diego's hits a punching bag
He's
and
like
he
had a
has
picture of from the
a
book,
book.
and yeah.
That shows like the hate is like so real. It's like so funny
So yeah, that's all seven of them, I guess. And then we have, like I said, the monocle. We haven't talked about him as the monocle.
because we don't know much about him.
We don't
Basically,
know much about him. His wife dies, and then he comes over.
I think
Like
I
you
think
said,
he's
we
an
don't know if it's
alien.
a different
Yeah,
planet or if it's just that world that they've set up.
there's
They
not
have,
even a time frame. It's just like long ago. It's not like
yeah,
20 years or
yeah. He
30 years
just
ago, 60
and
years
they
ago.
just sort of sneak that scene in. It was out of
Yeah,
context. He's just there. He just comes
yeah.
over. He
And he just opens a jar of fireflies or something.
yeah.
I've gone online and I looked at what that scene could mean,
Hmm.
and I think that is his home planet, which is dying
Okay.
from an apocalypse similar to the one Earth is facing,
Okay.
and he moves. His wife can't come with him because I think she's not well. She's not fit enough to travel or something. And he goes to her bedside and he talks to her. She
Oh, okay.
says, "You can go. You're meant for great things and all that.
Hmm.
And give me and like take the violin with you. Give it to somebody who loves it as just as much as me."
Right. Okay. Yeah, so that's the violin. I remember that part. So, but in the comic
And
books,
in the
right?
next scene, he walks away. He takes a jar from the table. I think that's a time jump. She's
Okay.
dead, and that's her soul.
Okay.
And he opens a jar, and her soul is like scattering the ashes.
Okay.
Kind of like poetic, like how he
Okay.
scatters her ashes, and Luther scatters his ashes,
Mhm.
like from the first episode and the second.
Right.
So it's kind of like a mirror.
Before which Claus just
Yeah.
pours his ash all over the table. But yeah, no. So also in the comic books,
Yeah.
it's established that he's an alien.
Okay, yeah.
So
Which
in the
makes sense.
comics, like in the first page, I think it says who Sir Reginald Hargreaves is.
Okay.
It says he's this Nobel Prize winner. He
Right.
does this, he does that, and he's also an alien. So and his face is actually just thrown on a chair as a mask, and
Okay.
he's looking at himself in the mirror, but
Um,
you can't see him neck
Right.
up.
Okay. So it's
So
kind of like a suspense.
it is. So we know that he's an alien for sure. If you've read the comics, we know. So spoilers for the series.
Okay.
We'll probably figure this
I
out
think
later.
I think they'll be
Um,
probably exploring that in the second season because
yeah,
they'll be going back in time.
because we already talked about this. We figured that this guy knew something was coming, so he got his family together.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
maybe yeah.
it makes sense that he's an alien. We just need to figure out how he knew or what his intentions were. Was he really a dick all the time, or was he just I don't know. It's unlikely, but then we'll see what happens.
And then we got another character called Leonard Peabody.
Right, Harold Jenkins.
Yeah, Hal Jenkins, which is probably the villain. Can you say that?
He is the villain as far as at least the Netflix series goes. Well, and he's instrumental to
To the main villain.
main villain. But for the most part, he is the villain.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so this character does not exist in the comics.
Okay.
So they brought him in for the series.
Okay.
I'm not mad about the character in the series. Also, I like that. So this is one of those very rare situations where I like the original material.
Okay.
And I also like the adaptation.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think if you read the original material, you would probably think, okay, fine, this is.
Yeah, usually people are split between that. Some people like the adaptation, some people like I like both. I like both, so I'm not mad at the character. The thing is, so he gave me the vibes of you remember that guy from The Incredibles, like the protege from
Yeah.
Incredibles. So
It's got
he
it's got
just-
even a little bit of Incredibles mixed in.
he
it, so-
wanted to become a superhero. They
Yeah,
didn't
because
let
he
him.
was
said,
born on the same day
Yeah,
as them,
yeah.
but he was already conceived 6 months, 9 months.
Yeah, but then like Hargreaves just basically tells
So
him
now,
off
like-
in front of the whole the crowd in the center. He has an abusive childhood. His father beats him up a lot.
Yeah, because
Um,
he sees him responsible for his mother's
So
death.
he kills him and then he goes to prison.
Yeah,
And he's there.
and he comes
But
out I think
when
the
he-
same day as
So my only,
Reginald dies.
I think so.
Yeah.
Has he? Did he? Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
So at least closer to. But the deal is when he's back, right? I don't understand what his drive is. Is he trying to destroy the Umbrella Academy, to tear them apart because he was rejected? Because if that's what he wanted, the Umbrella Academy is well destroyed by itself. Like,
I think he
nobody wants
wanted
to
to
get
actually
together.
destroy them.
Yeah, but then they all sort of
I think
are
he
on their
wanted to
own
like
anyway.
end them, like kill them off.
Yeah, probably. But it didn't seem like anger or anything. Like at least towards the end, I understand. Like at the beginning, he was just being like this innocent guy trying to win Vanya over to sort of
Yeah,
achieve that goal.
yeah.
But in the end, there wasn't like this other person who came out and sort of revealed himself as this guy who had planned this for a long time in prison or whatever.
No, I think that
He just continued to sort of stay that mellow character.
he tried to stop them. He tried to find that weak point, and Klaus just gave him to him
Right.
when he flicked
The dad's book from
his dad's case, a kind of like a
the pearl inlay case
case,
that they had. Yeah.
and he throws his journal.
Right. And then
And
he finds out Vanya's powers, so
he finds out Vanya's more powerful than them,
Hmm.
and he finds out her everything about her, and
Right.
he tries to turn her against them,
Hmm.
realizing she's more powerful than them.
Right.
She can probably kill them. So that's the thing. He had no idea about the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Apocalypse to him was secondary,
Hmm.
but he was the one who wanted Vanya to actually destroy her brothers and sister,
Mhm.
and he was the one that number 5 comes from the future to
So
stop.
yes, because he had his eyeball. Luther had his eyeball in the apocalypse in the future when they're
Yeah.
all dead. He's clutching Leonard's eyeball.
Yeah, his
And then
prosthetic eyeball.
his prosthetic eyeball. So he comes in. So Five finds it there, and then
Yeah.
he comes down to the present and tries to
It tries
figure out
to side
who this
search the
person is,
person,
because he knows he's responsible for the apocalypse, because Luther was obviously fighting him. Yeah, but also
and he tries
so.
to bring
But
out
my thing,
Vanya's powers. He tries to help her, like those X-Men training montages where she closes her eyes and tries to visualize things
right.
moving and all.
But yeah, no. So my thing is, yes, I understand that, but then he was pretending the whole time.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, I wanted him to be like a different character. Like I was pretending to be
wanted him?
somebody.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I wanted him. I wanted to see his psycho
Exactly. Yeah,
face.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? He was just like, oh, I'm
He's
still
just like
Leonard.
he's just like a mastermind.
No, he's just still this feeble guy.
Yeah,
Like,
you
you know what
wanted
I
him to
mean?
be a part of some, a super villain.
No, I don't want him to be like supernatural. I just
I know.
want him to
You
be.
wanted him to be a super villain, like
No, I just a different guy. Like
Okay,
I
okay.
am pretending to be like this really feeble, sensitive
I
guy.
thought he was.
I want him to come back and say, "I'm not sensitive. Fuck you. I actually plan to do this." That never happened. He just continued to stay a feeble, sensitive guy to Vanya
I thought he
also.
was Hargreaves.
Oh.
He died and came back to life.
Okay.
I thought.
So okay, cool. So, but in the comics, right? So we when we get into the stories, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what happens is that the apocalypse is there, and basically these guys try to stop it. Number 5 sort of sets everything in motion. He's coming back to the present, and they have 8 days to do it. At which point Leonard sort of befriends Vanya and uses her to sort of
Yeah,
destroy
he tries to.
the Umbrella Academy without knowing that that would cause the apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a
Secondary goal. He had no idea, but
it's like a small loop there
Yeah.
that they're chasing their own tail type of thing, and that's just happening. In the comics again, you'd have the Kraken communicating with this police commissioner. That's his only contact with the police, and there's also a chimp who's his lieutenant. So there are a lot of chimps in this universe. So while he's doing that, you would have Vanya. So the police commissioner basically says that a lot of these string instrument players have gone missing, right? So what happens is there's this character called the conductor, and he'd be putting together an orchestra for which Vanya would get a call to come and audition.
Okay.
Right. So the orchestra was called the Orchestra Verdammten, which is German for damned. I looked it up.
Okay.
So the Orchestra Verdammten is something he's putting together, and he would want Vanya to come and be his chair one, which in the series, that's that girl, and then
it's
Vanya
kind of like the head guy.
gets it because Leonard sort of inspires her to do it. That's what happens in the
And he
series.
kills the previous chair one guy.
Yeah, he kills the guy and for her to get that role. But here she sort of gets hired by this guy.
Okay.
And then he sort of puts her in a machine, like ties her down, puts some there's some sort of fluid that he puts in her veins, and then so he basically creates the white violin.
Okay.
through that process,
So
she
here
becomes.
the conductor is actually Leonard Peabody. Has been
Yeah,
with.
yeah, but then you should see the artwork is just really, he has like a skull face and like a cape, and he's like this really Dracula
Like
looking
a
guy.
real Phantom of the Opera kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, he was like a real proper villain guy. And then he
So that's what you
creates.
thought. You thought Leonard Peabody is actually going to say like, I'm not Leonard Peabody.
No, no,
I'm
no.
like,
I didn't want him to like. It was very clear that Leonard Peabody was not putting the orchestra together.
yeah,
Although that was a very interesting idea that they could have done. Because imagine that there's like this evil orchestra of people with masks who are playing, but it's a damned
yeah.
orchestra.
But I don't
That's
say
like
I don't.
very
Yeah,
My Chemical Romance. I wanted to
yeah.
see that because I
I
really
don't think
like
that
that
really
movie.
would have fit in with what they were going for, basically.
Yeah, I mean, though you never know. They could have done that and also not, really. Yeah, I guess so. It sort of changes the dynamics of all the characters, relationships, and so on
Okay.
with each other.
No, I
But
don't
I
think
was
that
hoping,
actually in that world, can you actually imagine there being a orchestra like full of guys with skulls playing music to kill everybody?
yeah, no, but it will change other things. If they
But
had done that, if that was the climax for
yeah,
how the white violin comes to be, it
okay,
would change other things. I'm not saying I just wanted to see that like in live action.
yeah,
Not necessarily that I want them to have done that in the series. I
okay.
just want to see that
So
orchestra in live
basically, what?
action for MCR purposes, because
So
My Chemical
you
Romance.
expected it to be like the Black Parade or something?
If they had put it on screen, that's what it would have looked like. But with Leonard, it's a different thing. Like I said, I am perfectly okay with both of these stories
Yeah,
existing with these differences, and I like them both. But Leonard, like I said, was this. I just wanted him to sort of be a stronger character when he
yeah,
reveals
exactly.
himself in the end. Yeah.
But
So
I think that instead of the conductor, I think what they did was actually good because it makes the stakes more personal.
right,
Because she is not out to bring the end of the world. She's actually out to
right.
bring.
She's just acting out
She
of
she just
emotions,
wants to
and then
kill. She just wants to break down everything that oppressed her. That's why
right.
she broke down the mansion.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she exploded everything. That's why she killed even Mr. Pogo because
Right.
he was in on the whole thing, trying to suppress her
Right,
powers.
right,
And yeah, it makes them more personal. It makes
right.
the stakes more
So
personal.
if I think about the Umbrella Academy, like villains,
Yeah.
the White Violent's a brilliant villain in the end,
Okay.
but also like you said in the series, she is emotionally driven. She has a very specific reason for trying to destroy the academy
Yeah.
and all of those people, all the Umbrella Academy cadets or whatever. Um, in the story, it's also the same reason. It's just she's rejected constantly by them,
Okay.
because of which she goes to this orchestra to sort of try and
But
belong.
I think that
And
if
I mean, you
she
really need
knowing
to sort of read that story too. That also made sense to me. Like it's the same motivation.
yeah,
It's
but
just the
then
people guiding her. This was Leonard, and that was the conductor. You know what I mean?
I think that if she actually went willfully joined the orchestra to bring about the end of the world, that would make her like a pretty irredeemable character.
Yeah, yeah. So in the comics, she's not like this. So like I said, there is no happy ending
Yeah,
as
I
far
know,
as Umbrella Academy goes.
I know,
Like
but
nobody's like a good character. She
I think
becomes a super villain
I
basically.
think they don't want to make her an outright
In
supervillain.
this, they want to redeem her somehow at
I
the
think
end.
they want her to be a shades of grey character, not completely bad, not completely
I mean,
evil,
she's
somewhere in
just
the
going to become like this really powerful unit
yeah,
of the Umbrella Academy,
but
is what
a
they're kind of going
tormented
for.
yeah that's what they're going for. But as of now, she's a tormented soul, been oppressed by her brothers, and even like they had another chance to like show her love, show her that she can be accepted with her new powers.
Hmm.
But Luther the fool
Choked her
choked her and
like an idiot. Like
throws her
knocked her out, puts her in that room.
yeah
She literally just
you
burst the whole
yeah
place open just by listening to her heartbeat,
yeah
because that's how powerful she is.
yeah
Someone else did that. Do you remember? There's some other character in a movie that just sort of heard their own heartbeat and sort of used
no
that against
I don't
somebody
think
else. I
so.
don't remember. But there
Her
is.
main power is that she can channel sound waves and turn them into like powerful blasts. That's what I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. So I
Yeah.
clearly remember there's some other story
So
and
what
some
they did
character
was
that did
like
that, but I
they
don't
threw
remember.
her in a soundproof chamber
Right. which
Like,
her father was using. She
yeah.
put her in that for
But
many
what they
years.
didn't count on was that she can hear,
Like
a
how
soundproof
powerful.
chamber
No,
blocks any sound from outside from entering, so she had no noise. But what they didn't realize was that there was an actual, she could hear her own heartbeat, and that was like an actual sound. So that's
no. The
how
thing
she,
is, they didn't know that she had powers until she cut, you know,
yeah,
Allison's throat.
so that system was like a
So if
foolish
you
system.
can't really judge Luther also, because even her father didn't know, how powerful she is, because she was a child when he used to put her in that chamber.
Exactly, exactly.
So this
That
time
was
around,
her.
Luther was just like, yeah, just put her in the same chamber, because they didn't know how powerful she was. But then,
Exactly,
she was just
exactly, but
too much to handle.
uh, you think that them ostracizing her was like her father's fault, but in reality, it's actually their fault. Like, you can say whatever you want, that uh, they didn't know how to handle her. I think Allison as well.
Hmm.
She tried her best to, like, say, let her out, let her go.
She did,
They
she
could have
did,
listened
yeah.
to her. They could have showed her some love. This entire thing would have been avoided if,
No, but yeah, but these guys have just always been in that mindset for like years and years and years from when they were children. They were all abused children, so you can't really expect them to act rationally in that scenario. What happened did happen. Like Luther choked her
see,
out all
everybody
as
was,
a precaution, as a
no,
security
no, no, no.
precaution.
Everybody was for letting her out. Diego was saying, let her out. She's our sister. Klaus was like, this is our Vanya. How can you put her into this?
Right. But
But
no, but
But
then
just because she attacked Allison, Luther took it as a personal vendetta, and that's what this
yeah,
entire thing would have been avoided if that fool.
it's that one frustrating moment, like what Star-Lord did with Thanos.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that one frustrating moment. But then it had to happen because, it was inevitable that the apocalypse was
Yeah,
going to.
exactly.
So,
Like what number five says.
yeah. Yeah, so that was so talking about these villains. So these are pretty cool. So Vanya becomes this huge villain. She becomes the White Violin. Even in the end, when the final end of the
Yeah.
apocalypse concert, with when she's playing, uh, these guys all go in from the back to sort of attack her, and
Mm.
Allison walks in. She smiles at Allison to
Yeah.
sort of, she sort of still has that connection with
Correction.
her, even though, she cut her throat because she was just fully losing it. She wasn't in control of her powers. So that was happening. But like I said, Leonard, okay, I understand him as a villain. I
Yeah.
really understand him as a villain. I wouldn't say I love the character or anything.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it was like a necessary character that sort of helped
He
move
was
the
just a
story.
pawn. He was a pawn in the
It moved
movement of the
in the
apocalypse.
scheme of the bigger things. He was a pawn, but according to him, he was sort of bringing about the destruction of the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
So that was there. But like I said, for reasons that I am a fan of My Chemical Romance, I like the conductor and the orchestra,
Right. Right.
Verdampton. I would have liked to seen that on the big screen. So there are also like these couple of villains. We should talk about Hazel and Chacha as villains,
Actually, the guy who plays Hazel,
right?
he actually used to come on Mindhunter.
Mindhunter,
Yeah,
the killer, right?
he was my favorite part of that show, and I was just so happy seeing him here.
Right.
He's like a really good actor, and Hazel and Chacha was played by Mary J. Blige. Did you
Right.
know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
An R&B singer.
Right. So the
Yeah.
thing is in the comics, right? So
Yeah.
these guys don't show up until Dallas, like the second series that came
Right.
out.
Okay.
So they are not the first, agents that the commission sends out.
Yeah.
Um, so and also in the comics, it's not the commission. The
The Tempest
organization is called
Eternalis. Tempest
Temps Atralis or
Eternalis.
whatever, right? So they send these agents called Temps.
Yeah.
This is really cool. They are almost dressed like Ronald McDonald, but with a gas mask on.
Okay.
They're not clowns, but they have this full onesie type of an
Right.
outfit. So which is like very, I don't know, it's just very punk, and they were wearing these masks on. So they are the guys who sort of attack number five in
Yeah.
the donut shop.
Yeah.
But in the movie, I guess for budget reasons, they made them just regular hired thugs from
Yeah.
Earth, which is just still a cool sequence. Like, but if you see the artwork in the comics, you'd
Right.
really want to see that happen. So, again, in the comics, just one small note is that number five and Pogo go to the donut shop. Number
Okay.
five doesn't go by himself. Then they like
Okay.
fly in they both of them fly in jetpacks or
Okay.
whatever. Later on, there's this other fight that's like this epic fight in a parking lot. The first time these temps come around, number five just annihilates them.
Okay.
So the second time they come around, number five is in a parking lot and he's just depressed and he's just walking to his car.
Okay.
And the parking lot in an instant is just filled with like thousands of
Okay.
temps. And he kills all of them.
Yeah.
He just massacres the whole parking
Ah.
lot's full of blood, which would have been like this really insane sequence
Yeah.
if you got to see it on in the screen.
Yeah.
So there's these small moments that they sort of missed out on. That moment didn't seem to really affect anything else in the story. It still could have been a part of this story, that the series on Netflix, but they didn't do that. They didn't include the temps. But I understand, because then you'd have to animate the
Yeah.
whole thing, and then the
Animated, and I think nearly the entire CGI budget went on Pogo, because out of all
and the moon exploding.
the moon
Another
exploding was kind
spoiler.
of so-so.
I liked it. It was fine. For a series, I've
Yeah,
seen
fine,
worse
but-
graphics in a series. Have you
but-
seen the DC like the live action?
Yeah,
series?
but
They have like horrible animation. Like
Yeah,
some of
but-
those scenes is just
I was so shook at Pogo. It was literally like watching something from from
yeah.
Planet of the Apes.
For Pogo, yes, it was really good because
But
he's
everything else
talking
was-
and he's interacting.
But everything else was just like average.
Like what?
Like when number five teleports and jumps back, and when you go to that commission headquarters, you can see a lot of green screen. You can make stuff out. And even in the moon, it was so like fake. It was like somebody stuck while they were looking outside through the Icarus theater, through that shattered window at the moon. It was like somebody like stuck a poster on it, So it was kind of like
Okay, no, it wasn't that bad. I actually liked it. It was fine.
It was so for me. So
It was
Yeah.
fine. It was like for a Netflix
So-
series, it was
so I don't think they could
for a
have
Netflix series it was actually above average
for a
graphics.
Netflix series. It was really good, but I'm saying once you look at something,
No, actually, I
of
think
Mr. Pogo,
it was like a movie grade graphics, dude. I don't know.
for me it was like kind of so. So I don't think they could have
Okay,
afforded.
for example, when Five goes to the future in the apocalypse, was that not believable?
Yeah, that was believable, but that was,
It was
but,
amazing
but those were practical effects.
Some of it, they didn't destroy the whole city to
Yeah,
shoot
but
it.
some of it was practical effects. If you mix
Like
both
the
it-
fires nearby, yes, but like I said, the moon when it blew up, like you saw that you could see the rocks just come up and the moon shatter.
right.
It looked really cool. I thought the animation was really nice.
Yeah, we'll think about that. And yeah, one more thing I would like to mention was the music.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about the
Yeah.
Greedy's music, Greedy's fight. I mean, the song Constantinople.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like really fun. And
Yeah, so they had some really cool music choices.
yeah,
Also Gerard Way made this song called Hazy Shade of Winter.
yeah, which
for
plays in the
this-
end credits.
Yeah. So again, that was an excuse for him to write a new song.
Yeah.
So that was fun. So they had some really, really cool
And-
music choices. in
And
this
special
movie, which
mention,
really-
I really love the scene where they all dance in different parts of the house.
right.
Where Luther plays the music.
Right.
And it was just a nice, fun moment.
They were back together.
Yeah.
So I should say this one thing. So there's this villain in the comics called Dr. Terminal.
Okay.
That what happens is, so they this is like a flashback in the comic where they're kids and they go fight this Dr. Terminal, and they finally end up
Killing him.
like destroying him, right? And then so over here what happens is when they sort of get back to so when they actually get back to the mansion for their father's funeral, there are these bots. They're kind of like these. They're called Terminauts. They're creations of.
Well,
It's not in the series. I'm talking about the comics.
okay.
So there are these things called Terminauts, and when these guys get together at their house for the funeral,
Okay.
these Terminauts get activated.
Okay.
They were actually made by Dr. Terminal when these guys were kids, and they have this really cool fight sequence. So when these guys sort of get back together in the mansion for the funeral, the Terminals sort of get activated. They're like flying trash cans. They're like little trash
Okay.
cans, and then they start destroying a huge amusement park.
Okay.
And then they all go have a fight, and Claus goes
So this happens only in the
first by himself.
comics, not in the TV show.
No, it doesn't happen. So it's one of those background sequences, like that bank scene when they are kids and they go
Right.
fight everyone. So that was kind of like a cheap cop out for showing a back, because there are a couple of really cool flashback sequences in the comics
Yeah.
that they could have used, um, which was a lot of fun. So one of those villains is Doctor Terminal, who wasn't huge, but what? So the very first mission that these guys goes on. This is an
Okay.
apocalypse suite. They go fight the Tower of Eiffel.
Okay.
The Eiffel Tower. I said the
Okay.
Tower of Eiffel. Who says the Tower of Eiffel?
I know. You're so hipster nowadays.
I just said the Tower of
You're
Eiffel.
so hipster.
The Eiffel Tower in Paris, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is the Eiffel Tower basically like sort of comes to life and starts throwing off people from
Okay.
who are standing on top of it.
Okay.
People are just raining down to the
Okay.
concrete and dying. So then all these kids go and they try to fight.
This happens when they were kids, like what happens at the bank.
Yeah. This happens when they're kids, and Ben's there too, and then they all go fight and try to destroy this guy.
Okay.
They go to the control room of the tower, and the villain who's controlling the tower, he'd be in there with all his gears and levers,
Yeah.
actually physically
Yeah.
controlling the Eiffel Tower. Is actually the guy who made the Eiffel Tower.
Okay.
What was his name? His name is some Eiffel, right?
No idea. Gustav Eiffel?
Yes, Gustav Eiffel. So
Yeah.
he's the guy who makes it, but it's zombie Gustav Eiffel.
Okay.
So he's sort of wearing like this metal, kind of like Space Boy in the comics. Right? He has like this gorilla
Yeah,
body,
yeah.
right? But this guy has like a metal body, and his head is like Gustav Eiffel, I guess. So yeah, so he's like the guy who's controlling the Eiffel Tower from the inside, and then he gets beaten up.
Okay.
And it turns out the Eiffel Tower is actually a rocket, so the Eiffel Tower takes off.
Okay.
So, and then a little cut to a few pages later, in like another chapter, the Eiffel Tower actually crashes on their house. So at the end of that movie, the comic actually, the Apocalypse Suite, what happens is, like I said, the conductor sort of recruits her,
Okay.
and then makes her into the white violin.
Okay.
She becomes the leader of the thing, and she kills the conductor in half. She
Okay.
like slices him in half.
Like what she does with
Yeah,
Allison.
yeah, but this is like head to groin. She just like slices him in half. The conductor is dead, and then she sort of takes over the orchestra.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, she tries to destroy the world. Tries to blow it all up. And there's so they don't say that she blows up the moon in the
Okay.
comics. She just energy goes out of her, and there's a meteor heading to Earth.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, we just sort of assume it's the moon. I don't remember them saying exclusively that the moon just there's no panel that shows the moon exploding
Okay.
in the comic. But they stop it. They sort of stop it, and there's some damage done, but not everything.
Okay.
So they go back home, and the mansion's destroyed, and the Eiffel Tower is just lying on top of the mansion towards the end of it, which is like a callback joke, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what this is. Because Umbrella Academy doesn't explain too many things. This happened when they were like kids. They were like below 10
It
years
happens
old.
now.
And then at the end of it, like these guys are adults and they stop the apocalypse, and then the Eiffel Tower is like just
Right.
on top of their destroyed mansion.
Okay.
So it's just funny. So he's one villain, Gustav Eiffel. And then in the Dallas thing that I was telling you about, the
Okay.
second series,
Okay.
the story starts off. So in the Apocalypse, I think I just told you this. The story starts off with the sequence of these
Yeah,
guys
yeah, yeah.
fighting, Gustav
In the-
Eiffel. In the Dallas series, the story starts off with them fighting Abraham Lincoln from the Lincoln Memorial. Of him as like a 60-foot
Okay.
thing. So, but this really cool thing happens. Who saves the day is Rumor. She says, "Mr. President, I heard a rumor that you were assassinated,
Okay.
right?" And then another 60-foot stone figure of John Wilkes Booth
Comes and assassinates him.
comes and shoots him behind the head,
Yeah.
and then he dies, right? But then, so Hargreaves is seen there, kind of trying to figure out what she actually thought actually physically appeared.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it came to life. which
See,
then
these are the kind of things I want Allison to do, but she never
no,
did any.
and then in the comics it never happened again. Like any she
Okay,
then uses her powers in a couple of situations. They never manifest at
okay,
all. This is just one little sneak peek, or this happened to
right, right.
Allison once she brought her thing back to life,
Okay,
and then they never talked about it again. I don't know why would they would do that. This
but
because
but
I don't
it's
know.
badass, you know. It's
It
really
was insane. Yeah, it was really cool.
it's
So
insane shit, and that's what they.
and there's this really funny thing where one of the kids goes, "This is the second time we're fighting a national monument because they fought the Eiffel Tower and then now it's Abraham
I was
Lincoln."
like,
So yeah, that was really funny also. So and just what I think we've covered most of the villains. I think that's all of them. There's just this one. We did we talk about the lady from the commission, the handler?
no, we didn't. We forgot to talk about the commission itself, which is
Yeah,
uh,
well, the commission. No, we did talk
oh,
about
we
the
talk about the
commission.
purpose of the commission, but we
Yeah,
forgot to like talk about the handler and
I
whether
mean, there's not much to talk about her. She's just sort of like this out of time sort of person who recruits these people, assassins, to
yeah,
go through time, do corrections to sort of keep the time
flowing,
flowing. But eventually, at least according to the story we've been told so far, everything ends in an apocalypse.
yeah, but
Uh,
not everything,
that
like she
cannot be
says.
stopped. The apocalypse cannot be stopped, at least in that timeline. So, but, no, so she corrects the timeline, even though she knows that down the line the apocalypse is going to happen,
Yeah,
right? So they want that eventuality to be there,
okay,
not necessarily because they're evil, because they're just keepers of the time or whatever. They
okay,
just that's what they do. So yeah, so that's the handler.
okay,
In the comics, actually, it's not the handler. There's this guy called Carmichael.
okay.
The best way to explain the character is do you remember that the minion from Megamind?
Nah,
Did you see Megamind?
no,
Okay, so Megamind has this minion who is this
okay,
big, sort of like this gorilla type of body,
okay,
and it's all like mechanic,
okay,
like it's like an android cyborg thing,
okay,
but you can see all the nuts and bolts and whatnot.
right,
And the head is basically like a glass bowl type of thing,
uh,
and inside is water and a goldfish. Right? So
fuck,
Carmichael's actually a fish
okay,
who's like in a bowl of water, acting as the head, and then the rest of the body is this huge, like
robot,
7 foot robot,
okay,
and he has like extremely high intelligence. So he's the guy who runs
okay,
the organization. So that's another villain. So towards the end of Dallas,
okay,
the series, number he actually shows up. A lot of things happen. I could probably just tell you a little bit about what happens, but a
okay,
little later. But a lot of things happen, and then Five punches him through the glass and breaks,
okay,
and he's like, he's a fucking goldfish.
yeah.
He's on the road, and Five takes him and swallows him. He just eats him up. So that was really funny. So he's like a pretty cool character. Which like if they had enough budget, I think they could have done that also. So
I think they
like I
could.
said, the ambition and the scope of the comic, like what Gerard Way wrote, and is huge. It's almost like you could do like a really punk indie version of like the Avengers type of thing,
Yeah,
right? It could be like a really high budget movie.
yeah.
But we're just lucky that we got a Netflix series out of it at least because
I
it turned
the
out pretty
and
well.
there's too
So
many plates spinning as well, and too much of
for
effects.
historically, any movie or a series or a cartoon or a comic that ever has to deal with time travel has always sucked at the end of the
I'm
day.
just glad they didn't make a movie out of this because it's too much to condense to a 10 episode series. I feel.
Oh yeah, okay.
But
That's a good point because then they couldn't tell the story even in 10 episodes. If it's a movie, you definitely can't.
3 hours is
Couldn't.
not enough for something like The Umbrella
It can't be a 3 hour movie. Also, Hollywood's gonna make it like an hour and a half because they want to run shows like
Yeah,
what they did to Zack Snyder, and then it's gonna suck. So the Dark Tower, for example, if you haven't
yeah,
watched that movie, that's
yeah,
that's
exactly.
another conversation.
Which is something that would have been perfect for a series.
It's perfect for a series.
A
I just
10:30.
wanted them to have that movie budget to
Yeah,
actually make these things come alive, because then they would have been really cool. They just sort of they're these things where they sort of went the easier route and made them. Oh,
exactly.
you just be a lady instead of me actually
Instead of
constructing
being
a
yeah,
robot and a fish. that talks, that's a lot of work. But then if they could have pulled that off, it would have been
Yeah.
really interesting to watch. Um, so I was just going to tell you quickly about what happens in the comic books, right? So what happens
Yeah.
is that
First, let's talk about the end of actually what really happens in the end.
of the series.
Yeah,
Okay,
of the series. So basically, what happens is
we
like,
already did the moon exploded.
yeah, but we have to talk about that implications. What happens after the moon
Oh yeah,
explosion?
okay, yeah,
So basically, what happens, like you said, they go and confront Vanya at the Icarus Theatre. She has a
right,
show where she's
right,
first chair.
right,
She's headlining the orchestra.
right,
So they go in and confront her, thinking that she's going to bring about the end of the world after this concert.
right.
So they go there. They try to attack her, but they fail miserably.
Hmm.
But what they didn't understand was like Allison snuck up behind her, pointed a gun at her head.
Right.
She had a chance to pull the trigger, but she didn't.
Hmm.
In order to save her sister's life, she pointed beside her, which shot,
Right.
which fired a shot,
Which implies that she
which
can't
which
hear
she
his
got
word
shook,
anymore.
which she got shook, and she unleashed all that inner energy inside her
And
out
just
into
shot
the
it through the roof to the
through roof.
moon.
And the moon just huge and just explodes. It's such a huge meteorite crashing to Earth, which makes them, concede defeat that the apocalypse has come.
Yeah, and then number 5 says we were never going to be able to stop this.
And Vanya's no matter how many times we go and go back in time and change things, as long as Vanya's the problem, she will always bring up about the
Right.
apocalypse. So what
And
they
at
do is,
that point, I guess they all sort of agree we can't kill our sister.
yeah,
They sort of, even Luther sort of realizes his
Yeah.
mistake.
So what they do is,
the bright side is she sort of
yeah.
fulfilled
So
her
what
full
they do is,
potential.
they go back and number 5 offers an option that we all go back in time with Vanya, treat her, change her, try to change her. So
No,
she
he
tries to,
says that?
yeah,
No, he doesn't.
as long we
No,
can
he just says, let's go back. We just have to get out of
they
here.
are when Luther carries Vanya, like, why do we need to bring her as well? And he was like, yes, we can change her.
Not in the sense that her powers, just she's become evil. They want to win her back.
Right, I don't know about that.
Why would they change her back to normal? She's a white violin now.
No, make her okay, make her in control of her powers.
Right. Yeah. So no, I think at this point she's in control of her powers at the end of it. At least like when she's glowing and she's fully white, the violin turns
Nah,
white.
but I think the powers are in control of her. It's kind of like a phoenix thing, I think. Not
Yeah,
sure.
okay, yeah, probably. But also, yeah, makes sense. But then they don't really want to, like, we don't know what they want to do with it because these guys are idiots. Like, they go back to their own ways. I don't know.
So what they do is like they all of them go back in time. All of them are reversed into their younger selves, and just immediately when they go back in time, the entire Icarus theater just explodes.
Yeah.
And it causes like a huge and the meteorite which crashes causes like a huge fire thing which
Right.
kills out
Which
everybody.
you can see what happens when 5 goes to the future and found the whole place and
Yeah.
destroyed him in fire. So yeah, but we don't know what happens. The speculations are
And the handler dies. Hazel shoots the handler because he has
yeah.
Agnes.
There. And then Hazel has the time traveling box in his hand.
which
So
is a
they
secret.
also disappear exactly as the fire sort of
Yeah.
comes to them. So they get away. Chacha dies and the handler dies.
Yeah.
Chacha is trying to call someone
Yeah.
in the phone booth and then she dies because she can't time travel without
Yeah.
the box. But we don't know what happens to these guys. We're hoping that they go back and become children and then they sort of grow up from
Yeah.
there again because then we get to see all of these other cool,
Yeah.
things that we see in the comics as them fighting and as kids, they have a lot of cool missions that happen. So we want to see that too. Now in the comic books, what happened is like I said in Apocalypse Suite itself.
Yeah.
So the concept that the handler, I'm sorry, the
white violin.
conductor,
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
after changing her to the white violin, the conductor plans to execute the that musical that he's written. The music that he's written is called the Apocalypse Suite, right? So he wants to sort of play that. But then, like I said, she kills them, and then she sort of destroys the world in the process. So I mean, she doesn't destroy the world. She destroys the moon, and then but still the Earth somewhat survives. There is some destruction, but the Earth still survives.
Okay.
But in the comic book, number 5 blows her brains out.
He kills her.
Yes.
Oh,
So what happens? So Vanya actually becomes a white violin, visits the mansion.
okay,
She blows the brains out of Pogo,
fine.
who
Yeah,
dies.
yeah. She kills Pogo in the series as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So she kills Pogo, who dies. And then these guys go to the Icarus Theater where she is doing a
Okay.
final performance and she's going to end the world. And these guys get in there. Seance, Claus, channels their father,
Okay.
right? And he brings in a chorus of musicians. He brings in his own
Okay.
orchestra of dead people, children,
Okay.
dead children, and then there's this older guy who's a conductor. So it's sort of like the evil brass band versus the good brass
Last
band.
one. Yeah.
So these guys start
So it's
playing
all
while they are
dead
playing,
people. Bunch of
and
dead people.
and then and then Claus is sort of channeling his father, and he has this really cool conversation with Vanya. At which time, Five sneaks in and blows her brains out from behind.
Okay.
But then we learned that Claus actually didn't bring his father out. Like
Okay.
he'd be wearing like his father's clothes and stuff.
Okay.
But it's still Claus, but he'll just be talking like his father.
Okay.
But it would turn out that he was just pretending to be his
Okay.
father. He didn't actually bring his father out.
Right.
But the other dead people were playing the music, the children and the choir that he brought out.
Yeah.
But after that happened, White Violin would not die.
Okay.
Surgeons would sort of put her back together,
Okay.
but she would have no memory of who she is or what she is. So
Okay.
she'd be back at the mansion.
Okay.
And Allison's story, and they get back together, but she's in a wheelchair and she's comatose. The White Violin
Right.
doesn't know
Okay.
know what's happening, but she's alive.
Okay.
She's the White Violin now. In the comics, she literally turns white
White.
after the
Okay,
process. She becomes the violin herself.
Okay.
But yeah, she's not dead. Um, but Allison gets her voice back.
Okay.
This weird. I'm kind of thinking this is because she makes some sort of deal with the commission to save her daughter
Right,
from
right.
the apocalypse as well.
Okay.
Which is something we can expect in the sequel, the
Okay.
season 2.
Okay.
She could go back to the commission and say, save my daughter in return
Yeah.
for. Or I don't know. She could probably become an agent for the commission if they
Maybe,
fix her
yeah.
voice. So there are a lot of ways that could go. She's one, a character that we can see that's going back there.
Okay.
Because Five already went there, came back,
Yeah.
and then decided he wants to, stay here.
Yeah.
Um, Hazel again is with Agnes now, so that happened. So talking about Agnes, actually, the donut shop, like
Okay.
in the comic books, you know how Hazel just eats like a ton of donuts.
Yeah.
In the comics, Hazel and Chacha actually eat cookies,
Oh.
not donuts, right? And the shop's called Costello's.
Okay.
I just sort of felt if they sort of stuck to one thing or the other, like
Okay.
it would have been donuts and greedies in the comic, or if it's Costello's,
Okay.
it's sort of if you're a fan, at least if you're like me, you like both, you like the comics and the series, it sort of ties it together for you.
Yeah, I get it. I
felt
get it.
slightly more,
Yeah.
if you're a fan and you
Yeah.
want to go to Costello's and get donuts, I don't know. So I kind of that's the speculation about what's up for season 2. That it literally can be anything from what I've read in the comic books.
And not to mention that might
Like
be
they could go back and become kids, like we just said. But also, so Hargreaves would be alive, and so I want to know what this guy's deal is. This Hargreaves,
yeah.
right? So that's something that's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And so that implies that we'll be going into the past to find out what happens to Hargreaves and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I also want to know what happens to Vanya as the White Violin, what choices
Yeah,
she makes.
it's pretty intriguing. And as
That's
well,
sort of going forward in the future. I don't know where in time this guy
Yeah.
took them to now.
and as well, we might have a new handler, and what that person, he or she might,
Right,
have.
right.
They could be the new big bad villain. And
Yeah, so the time continuum guys, they still exist. There would be a
yeah,
new
but they have a
handler,
new
but
head. But
the apocalypse did happen, so I don't think they're going to go after the Umbrella Academy anymore, because they unless they whatever the
Because-
time
no,
is they jump to
because
they
they
try
are
to
trying
change
to change it again, right? So they might go after them harder
They
than
didn't
ever
really
before.
strongly say that. Like I said, Five only said anything we do, this is still going to happen. So let's just get out of here and then time jump.
Yeah, so
So they didn't say after we time jump, let's figure out how we can stop this. So I don't know what they're going to do at this
Yeah.
point.
I really
Um,
don't know. And not to mention there are 30 something other,
Yeah, like the kids who survived, that hasn't been explored in the comics also, so I don't know. But the only thing that so this is how it is right now, right? So the stories are similar. The comics and the series are great. They are great individually. I love them both. The characters, the relationships have been slightly changed. Like who has the better dynamic with the other character has slightly been changed, and you'd have to give them that because they're adapting this for the screen. But they didn't like wreck it in any way. It still played out pretty well. So I'm cool with that. Um, but one thing that is very noticeable is that this season, the first season of the Umbrella Academy, is a mashup of the Apocalypse Suite and Dallas put together. Right? This is not like so there's not.
Yeah, they have taken some liberties. They have definitely taken
I
some
mean, no,
liberties.
it's they took liberties in the sense that they cut off a lot of these flashback sequences and things like that were in the comics that sort of gave it more color and more layers. They took it off, but they still were able to tell a very effective, fun, entertaining story in the series in just 10 episodes. So I think that's great.
They focus more on the now instead of the flashbacks.
Right. So anything that's going to happen in the future, I think is going to, at least from the creator's standpoint, is going to be an adaptation of Hotel Oblivion, the third series that came out.
Okay.
An adaptation of that, I
But don't forget that in the comics, you mentioned that they have stopped the apocalypse. But here, the apocalypse is still ongoing. So I don't think they can.
Okay, so in the comics, the Earth actually ends too.
Okay.
But that's like it's a slightly different story. So what happens is, remember that part where Claus gets kidnapped by Hazel and Chacha? So at the beginning of Dallas, JFK gives Hargreaves a box of nuclear bomb basically. It's a suitcase, and he gives him a nuclear bomb that Claus happens to take with him when he gets kidnapped by Hazel and Chacha. And then Hazel and Chacha kill Claus. They shoot him in the head. Claus dies. Goes to the afterlife. Meets God, who is a cowboy.
Here he meets God, who's a girl riding a cycle.
Right. So then he comes back to life. And then Claus kills Hazel and Chacha. Okay. And so in the comics, Hazel and Chacha are not long lived. They don't they're not from the whole Apocalypse Suite. They only turn up in the Dallas series, and then they are killed off in the Dallas series. They both die. There is no relationship with Agnes. That never happened in the comic books. Claus leaves. They find they dig up Pogo's grave. They find a temp, one of the temps buried instead of Pogo in the thing. So Pogo's not dead. Pogo just sort of
fakes his death.
Time jumps. I mean, no, he got killed by Vanya, but then he in the grave he isn't there anymore. So without five, right? So there's Claus and number one, Luther, Spaceboy, and I think who was it?
Seance.
Claus is a seance. No, but was it Allison? I don't know. I think it's Allison or Diego. Claus uses the temp's body to time jump them. To the past, to the Vietnam War. So Claus actually doesn't go to the war. Diego goes to the war.
Oh, okay.
And so when Diego goes to the war, they basically try to revive a mummy of the Vietnamese tribes to sort of stop the Viet Congs. And then that turns out into a huge boss battle of mummy comes to life. There's vampires. So that's like this whole batshit crazy thing that happens in Vietnam when Claus actually gets stuck a few years ahead of when he wanted to time jump. So Claus and Luther are there. Luther's grown a full beard now because it's been 8 years. He jumps like 8 years ahead. Like before when they wanted to go. Claus has a baby. He runs a brothel in Vietnam, and then he builds a teleporter. What's it called? Tell us something that Hargreaves creates to sort of time jump safely without having the powers. So then they use that to sort of get to the JFK assassination. So their mission is basically to go to the past where Five kills JFK and stop him.
Okay.
So, but they go 8 years
Ahead.
behind that,
Behind. Okay.
and then they sort of live 8 years through. So Claus has a baby.
Okay.
Diego's gone to the Vietnam War, and all of this happens.
Okay.
And then they get enough money to build that teleporter thing. So then they come to the JFK assassination,
Assassination.
and they stop number five from assassinating him.
Okay.
But then they figure out in the car with John F. Kennedy
Okay.
as his wife, impersonating his wife, is Rumor,
Okay.
right? So uh, five goes to take him out.
Okay.
Number one catches him and
Okay.
he stops the
Yeah.
assassination. But number five says,
I've heard a rumor. Yeah.
no.
Number five. Yeah. Yeah.
Number
Okay.
five says, this was the actual plan was not that I would take him out. So number five, the rumors with JFK in the car, she
Okay.
turns to him and says, I heard a rumor that your brain blows out, and his brain blows out and he dies. So that's great. So because that incident happens, the part where the police, you remember that police commissioner that the Kraken used to talk to,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
the chimp and the police
Yeah.
commissioner, they find Hazel and Chacha after Claus shoots him in the head.
Okay.
And Agnes is with them also because Hazel and Chacha already kidnap Agnes and have her
Okay.
in the same space that they
Okay.
had Claus as a prisoner. So and then Claus kills them, and then they time jump 8 years, and
Yeah.
they're in Vietnam doing all of these things in the 60s.
Okay.
They come to the JFK assassination, they pick up number five, and then they find out rumor number three actually assassinates JFK, and then she joins them also. The assassination had to happen because it was a correction. JFK had to be assassinated
Okay.
in order to save the world.
Okay.
So they actually end up doing what the commission wanted them to do.
Okay.
So Carmichael, that big fish guy
Yeah, the
from the
fish,
commission,
yeah.
he comes and says it's all good because this is what we wanted, and then we ended up getting what we wanted. That's when five hits him and he eats him,
Okay.
right? But in the future, when they left Agnes behind,
Okay.
these guys come and they check, and then the box starts beeping.
Okay. The time box.
The
Briefcase.
So at the beginning of Dallas, when JFK gave the
Yeah.
briefcase to Hargreaves, which is
Yeah.
this is a nuclear bomb, actually is here in the room with Agnes. Claus just doesn't take it; he leaves it there. That explodes and the world's destroyed. But
Oh.
because these guys actually go back there and assassinate JFK,
Yeah.
they actually restore the world back.
Oh, okay, okay. So
So-
JFK doesn't give the briefcase to
Yeah, he
Hargreaves.
doesn't give the briefcase to Hargreaves, and then the world's saved. So that's how they sort of save themselves and the world in the Apocalypse Suite and that. So yeah, so you should definitely read the comic also if this sounds interesting. Or if
I
you
know,
watch
it
the
really
series.
sounds mad, man. I can't wait.
If you saw the series, yeah, and you like those characters, you should read the comics also because it's definitely turned up to a 10 and nothing less than the series. Like I
Yeah.
said, I like the series also.
And I think it's going to be a long wait. I think maybe next 2 years before
Probably.
we get the next season.
Yeah, I mean, hope not. Maybe a year because a lot of series just because one thing that I noticed about the Umbrella Academy is that everybody immediately started talking about season two because then I'm pretty sure that the
Oh, season 2 is coming. That's
yeah.
confirmed.
So Netflix would definitely take notice at how soon people are talking about season two. So they will start making that for sure. It's not one of those shows like Mindhunter, for example. They did Mindhunter.
Yeah.
This first series was good, but then they haven't done that yet.
It's been 2 years since.
Yeah, so they would probably come around when they have time or the budget to do it. But at least with Umbrella Academy, I'm pretty sure they will start work on it right away because everybody was really excited about it, and they
I know
started the season.
the hype is real, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the second season.
So I'm actually gonna go and read Hotel Oblivion, so I'm ready when the second series comes out. The second season comes
Mm.
out. Because I'm pretty sure they draw a lot of parallels from that, and there is a hint of what Hotel Oblivion is. So I think it was Doctor Terminal, that guy I was talking to you about.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he got put away in Hotel Oblivion. There's just
What is Hotel Oblivion?
it's kind of like a prison for superheroes.
Okay.
That's probably where you'll find the other kids, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe Hargreaves are just collecting them and just putting them there because
In Hotel
Hargreaves owns
Oblivion.
Oblivion.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That could be cool because there's just one hint of Hotel Oblivion in the Apocalypse Suite and the Dallas comic books. So yeah, so I'll go read Hotel Oblivion and be ready for that. So this just one last thing before we close. And I think from how we started, I just want to talk about Gerard Way, and like we, if you haven't checked out the other podcast, there's this whole fight about Michael Romance and Drake that we did, that you could go check out. So you know that I'm a huge fan of Gerard Way and his artwork and what he does. So, but you could definitely see a lot of that influences in the the Umbrella Academy, not just in terms of the storytelling and how these characters are
Yeah,
developed.
definitely.
I even liked how the episodes were named. Like
Yeah,
the first
definitely.
episode was we only see each
Each
other
other at
at,
weddings and
which
funerals.
is like an MCR song for me. Like Mike and
Yeah.
Chris would have written a song. You know what they did to
Yes,
guys like us in
yes.
prison was a song of My Chemical
I
Romance,
know.
and you could definitely see that
You can definitely tell
the
that they had a
signature is
heart.
there.
Yeah.
Like the how he phrases it, like how he names these things, you can
Yeah.
definitely tell his signature. And so that's yeah, I'm extra excited because I'm a fan of Gerard Way. And
Okay, and
so,
finally, what's your favorite episode?
oh shit, favorite. Okay, so it's difficult to say because one issue that I had was the pacing of the whole series. Some episodes were slower, some were a lot
I think that happens
quicker.
in every Netflix episode. You
Yeah,
get the slow burn, and around
right.
episode
So
4, 5.
if you are not a fan, like if you haven't read the comics or you're not a fan of Gerardo, I think you'd find trouble to sort of break through. At some places, you'd
Yeah.
have to sort of struggle to get to the next episode.
It
But
drags
it's
in the
definitely
5 and
worth it.
6.
It's
It drags
definitely
around
worth.
5 and 6. If there was any complaint, you
If
could
you
say.
stay till the end, it's definitely worth it. My favorite episode, let me think. I don't know. Like whichever one clause is in the most. I don't know because I
Yeah,
just
I think
enjoyed them on screen.
that's my favorite. I think the day that wasn't or the day that was.
Oh yeah. So the day that wasn't was fun because
Yeah.
it gave closure to a lot of the things that we're talking about. But then they immediately
Yeah,
went
it
to say
resets.
it didn't happen. The
Which,
day that wasn't, the day that was. So I think maybe the day that was a lot of things were happening.
I prefer that because it had actually much more shocking truths and
Right, right. I
revelations.
mean, it wasn't happy. It wasn't a happy
Yeah,
ending because that just happened with the
yeah.
day that wasn't, and then the
You
day
find
that
out that
was
you find out
the
that Vanya finds out about Leonard's
Leonard.
plans
Yeah, yeah.
and
So then it's like the yeah, and it's sort of bittersweet when you come to
yeah.
the day that was. So I think I like that episode. Also, if you're a fan of Gerard Way, you should check out Doom Patrol because he's written those comics also.
Seriously, for
Yeah, he
DC.
was involved in Doom Patrol. I
Okay,
don't know, like if he wrote the whole thing or he did the artwork, but he was involved in it. I checked them out in Teen Titans.
okay.
Doom Patrol shows
Yeah,
up in Teen Titans, the show, which came to Netflix. Doom Patrol is only on the DC streaming service at the moment. It's going to take at least a few more months to hit Netflix.
yeah, for it to fully
When
come
it
over to
does
Netflix.
that, I would definitely check it out. But yeah, if you're a fan, you should check out Doom Patrol also, or at least just catch up on the Teen Titans bit, so you know what that is when you get to see it. So yeah, so this is definitely uh, you know. I've been waiting for this show since January, so it's really exciting, and I've watched it twice now. I've binged it twice. Probably give it some more time and watch it again. The comics were great, so again, the recommendation is that you could read the Apocalypse, Vita, and Dallas, and the whole series. And I'm gonna go check out Hotel Oblivion, and we could probably talk about Hotel Oblivion when we get through that. So go check out the Umbrella Academy. It's on Netflix. This has been great. So join us again next time on Decoy. Peace out.